Welcome to Recaply X, your movie recap in a flash. We bring the drama, the action, and the twists. In minutes, the story of the film begins in 1912, when the original Titanic sank. The captain was trying to lower it into a lifeboat, but the ropes broke, and the boat overturned in the sea, causing people to drown. However, Elizabeth manages to swim and climb onto the overturned boat. Suddenly, she hears Charles screaming and sees him on a nearby iceberg, swimming towards her to save her. She feels relieved, but suddenly, a ghostly figure emerges from the water and drags her down. The narrative then shifts to 110 years after the original Titanic sank. A ship named Titanic 3 is built to sail the same route and stop at the location of the original shipwreck. The news is announced by the press, and people are excited to board the ship. Here we are introduced to a couple, Maya and Jackson, who arrive at the port in their car. Jackson admires the ship's massive size. As they disembark, it is revealed that they are celebrities, and they begin taking pictures with their fans before boarding the ship. Meanwhile, we meet Captain Rose, who is on the ship and part of a team that includes Commander Brian, Hector, and a security and artifact preservation crew. Rose thanks them for their work before setting the engines in motion, and the ship begins its voyage. The passengers, including the couple, are celebrating and capturing memorable moments. A girl named Anita sneaks out from below the ship, wanders around, and enters a room to take and wear crew uniforms. Julie, a crew member, makes an announcement over the microphone, informing passengers that the ship was built with high precision and that some individuals have donated original artifacts from the Titanic. She mentions that Captain Rose will take them to the site of the original Titanic's wreck the next day, where they will honor the victims with a minute of silence. Anita, meanwhile, notices a violin and begins to handle it, but the professor, who is in charge of the artifacts, scolds her for touching it, explaining that it is extremely valuable and was played during the Titanic's sinking. Anita notices a hairpin and mentions that her grandmother had a similar one, stating that ancient Egyptians used to be buried with their treasures, and anyone who stole them would be cursed with death. The professor becomes angry and asks Julie who Anita is. Julie does not know, so Anita is asked to leave the room. While the others are distracted, Anita steals the hairpin and some money without anyone noticing. The couple, Maya and Jackson, continue taking photos and accidentally bump into the professor, who gets angry at Jackson. Maya defends Jackson, but the professor becomes infatuated with her, much to Jackson's annoyance. They continue exploring the ship and meet Brian, who helps them find their way. Meanwhile, the professor is seen speaking to a passenger about a ring that once belonged to Captain Edward. The passenger asks about its price, but the professor says it is not for sale, although he has other artifacts to show. Anita begins performing a ritual to summon spirits, using a picture of Captain Edward from her bag. At the same time, a party is happening in the ballroom, and Captain Rose is preparing herself while speaking to her fiancé via video call. Maya and Jackson stumble upon Anita performing the ritual and start live streaming it. Anita cuts her hand, letting the blood drip, which makes the couple frightened. Nancy, a fan of the couple, follows them after seeing their live stream. Anita smears the blood on her face, causing the ship's walls to shake, the live stream to cut off, and the couple to panic and leave. Rose's call with her fiancé is interrupted. Nancy introduces herself to the couple, expressing her admiration and saying she booked a ticket for the trip after learning they were on board. The professor, meanwhile, encounters Jackson and keeps staring at Maya, laughing. Nancy assumes he is a fan of theirs and tells him they have 12 million followers. The professor, thrilled, asks Nancy to leave them alone. Maya gets upset and tells him to be more respectful, but he shows her a rare artifact, including a blue diamond. He gets closer to Maya, making her uncomfortable, and Jackson angrily tells him to leave. At the party, Julie announces that they have reached the site of the wreck and asks for a minute of silence. Meanwhile, Anita completes her ritual, and Captain Edward's ghost appears before her. Maya and Jackson are on the deck, drinking, when they hear violin music. A ghost is seen playing behind them. Maya is moved and begins dancing with Jackson. Suddenly, the ship's power cuts out briefly. Maya feels a sharp pain in her head and asks Jackson to stop the music. The ghost approaches her unnoticed and drags Jackson into the mist. When the sound stops, the crew becomes alert. Assistant Captain Beauregard orders a full inspection of the ship. Maya, realizing Jackson is missing, becomes frantic and starts searching for him. The professor finds her and suggests going to the bar to calm down. She agrees but remembers her phone is on the floor. When she retrieves it, she decides to record what happened. Suddenly, the ghost appears, playing the violin, and Maya is dead. Beauregard notices a strange light on the radar, but dismisses it due to the fog. He did not notice the strange light on the screen, so he decided to call Rose, but he did not find her, and he decided to go to her. The professor finds a lifeboat with a passenger who cannot believe they were saved. On the deck, guards discover Maya's body. Beauregard informs Rose, who is at the party, and asks for her assistance. Rose is shocked by the equipment's malfunction and orders a system reboot. Brian takes Rose to see Maya's body, and she is horrified. She asks the crew to search for Jackson and check Maya's live stream for clues. Hector instructs the guards to search the area and review camera footage. Rose retrieves Maya's phone and instructs Hector to check the last number she called. She tries to contact the Coast Guard. Meanwhile, an engineer hears a noise while fixing the equipment and sees someone approaching. He tries to escape but is killed by the ghost. Then Brian and Hector were checking the cameras, and when Rose arrived, they told her they didn't find anything, but they had unlocked Maya's phone and showed her a video of the professor. When she returned to the phone, she saw something that terrified her and died without revealing who killed her. Rose said they needed to interrogate the professor. They discovered the professor was slightly disoriented, and when Rose and Brian approached him, they told him they needed to talk in private. He went with them, shocked when they told him Maya was dead, Jackson was missing, and he was the last person to see her alive. The recording showed he had fought with Jackson. He denied any involvement in the crimes, but Brian suggested taking him in for questioning, and Rose agreed. Meanwhile, Anita used her spells again to move the ship. During the arrest, Rose noticed the movement and told Brian to continue while she checked what was happening with the ship. Brian told the professor he could help him get out of trouble, but only if his profit share increased to 15%. It was revealed they had been working together, but the professor hesitated and, after negotiation, agreed to only 13%. Brian asked why he was interested in the artifacts. The professor admitted he didn't care about the items, but about the people they belonged to, who had died and no longer needed them. Meanwhile, Captain Rose noticed the ship was moving without their command. She went to the control room and asked the crew. Parker told her something was preventing the system from operating, and he didn't know why. When Rose tried to restart the system, all attempts failed, and the ship continued moving. Rose became angry and told them to reverse the system. She went to the deck and met Brian. They headed to the engine room, while Julie and the woman who had bought the necklace went to the deck. Julie admired the necklace and left. Suddenly, a ghost appeared and strangled the woman with the necklace, killing her. In the engine room, Rose and Brian tried to close the valve, but were shocked to find the engineer's corpse. Rose called Parker, but the connection was still down. She tried to stop the ship and fix the system, but the computer and valves were unresponsive. Brian warned her the engines couldn't handle the pressure and they needed to leave, but Rose refused, insisting on closing the valve first. Brian pulled her out, and an explosion shook the ballroom, causing panic among the passengers. They didn't know what was happening, suspecting they had hit an iceberg. Parker informed them the explosion had occurred in the engine room. Rose joined them, and they reported an iceberg ahead, with the ship heading straight for it. Rose instructed Parker to search for nearby ships for help. In the engine room, Hector saw the ghost. When Parker couldn't get a response, Rose informed the passengers about the engine failure and reassured them they would find a solution. The Coast Guard contacted her, and she reported the crimes and the ship moving without orders. The Coast Guard informed her the nearest ship would arrive in 2 hours. She returned to her room to inform the leadership. Meanwhile, the professor, in his cell, noticed water leaking from the ceiling and the lights flickering. He heard loud noises and felt pain from the sounds. He saw the ghost, ran to a corner, and begged not to be killed. The ghost approached, tied his hands to the bed, and blew in his face. At the same time, Nancy arrived at the control room and told Brian she had something important to tell the captain. Rose decided to listen, and Nancy revealed the ghost had killed Maya, as seen in the video. Rose dismissed it as nonsense, saying there were no ghosts on Titanic 3. She instructed Brian to escort Nancy to her room. Suspecting she was hallucinating, Brian went to the professor's cell and found him terrified and lying on the floor. When the police arrived to help him up, he demanded to see the captain immediately. When he met Rose, he revealed he had seen a strange creature and felt death was near. Blaming her for imprisoning him, he insisted they return the ship to New York. At that moment, a guard reported Hector was missing. Rose instructed the guards to take the professor back to his room and told Brian to search for Hector. As the guards escorted the professor, they encountered Anita. The professor accused her of being responsible for the ship's troubles. Anita admitted she knew the truth, but claimed they weren't ready to hear it. The professor demanded she be interrogated. Anita pointed at him, blaming him for everything because he had disturbed the graves of the dead, reigniting the chaos. She explained the voices had faded initially, but returned strongly after the graves were opened. She declared the ship was cursed. The professor, terrified, asked how to stop it. Anita said it was too late, and the curse would follow him, causing everyone around him to die. The guards continued to escort him, but encountered the ghost. The professor backed against the wall as a guard approached the ghost, trying to communicate. The ghost killed the guard, and the professor fled in fear. Brian took Anita to the cell, but she warned him it wouldn't help and that everyone would die. Suddenly, the doors locked, and Captain Edward's ghost appeared in the room. Brian fired a shot, but it hit his colleague instead. At that moment, the ship's power went out. Rose and the crew went to the deck with flashlights. Rose saw the ghost and screamed in fear, but when the crew shone their lights, they saw nothing. Rose thought she was imagining things and suggested they return to fix the system. In the room, Captain Edward decided to transfer his power to his granddaughter, Anita. Brian watched, frightened, as Anita approached him, slammed him against the wall, and left. Meanwhile, the professor packed his bag to leave. In the bathroom, he washed his face, but saw the ghost in the mirror and was killed. Anita entered the control room, used her powers to push Parker aside, and confronted Rose. When Rose approached her, Anita pushed her down and began strangling her. The ship moved toward the iceberg. Rose pleaded with the ghost to stop the ship, reminding him he was no longer the captain and his actions wouldn't bring him back to life. The ghost didn't respond. The energy continued with their attempts to stop the ship, but all of this was in vain. Rose tried to talk to Anita and told her that if the ship sank, she would die too. Anita was shocked and told her she didn't care, then killed herself. After that, the ship collided with the mountain, and the passengers were in a state of fear and anxiety. As for Julie, she was trying to calm them down. Rose tried to contact a nearby ship to save them, but she got no response. Then the professor interrupted and told her that he knew a way to save the ship, and the way was to return all the artifacts to their place at the bottom. However, Rose didn't care and told him to go help the passengers instead of this plan. At this point, half the ship sank, and the passengers were terrified. Brian stole one of the artifacts, and as he was trying to escape, he was surprised by a ghost approaching him. The ghost forced him to point the gun at his head, and he ended up killing himself. Professor Chand was helping people board the lifeboat, but the ghost cut the ropes, causing the boat to fall into the water and overturn. The entire ship sank. As for Rose, she stayed on the ship because she refused to leave it. The only survivor on the lifeboat was the professor, who was terrified and shivering. Then I heard Rose's voice in the water, so he helped her and pulled her onto the boat. She tried to calm him down because he was devastated by fear, knowing everyone had died because of him, and he was the only one left alive. Rose told him, You tried to help people and did what you could. You need to forget what happened. When he went silent and she didn't hear his voice, she turned to him, only to find him dead. At that moment, she realized a ghost had killed him and was deeply saddened. Suddenly, he turned into a ghost and killed Rose. Up until this point, we understand that the curse had taken control of the ship and managed to kill everyone on board. And with that, the movie ends. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to get more new videos.